The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape of Viridian. Captain Mara Arden stood on the deck of her command center, her gaze fixed on the horizon. There was a tension in the air, a sense of unease that seemed to permeate every corner of the settlement. As the day wore on, rumors began to circulate among the settlers. Whispers of strange ships on the outskirts of the system, of shadowy figures lurking in the darkness. Mara brushed them off at first, dismissing them as nothing more than idle gossip. But as the hours passed and the reports grew more frequent, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then, without warning, the sky lit up with streaks of light as enemy ships descended from above. The settlers scrambled for cover, their shouts and cries echoing through the air. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the scene unfold before her. This was it, the moment they had all feared. Without hesitation, Mara sprang into action, barking orders to her crew as they rushed to their stations. There was no time to waste, no room for doubt. The Vexari had come, and they meant business. As the first shots rang out, Mara felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. This was what she had trained for, what she had dedicated her life to. She would not let her people down, not now, not ever. With a steely resolve, Mara rallied her forces and launched a counterattack against the invaders. The battle was fierce and chaotic, with explosions lighting up the sky and the roar of gunfire filling the air. But through it all, Mara remained calm and focused, her eyes fixed firmly on the enemy ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the fighting raged on into the night. But even in the darkness, Mara refused to back down. She would fight until her last breath, if that's what it took to protect her home. And so, as the dust settled and the smoke cleared, Captain Mara Arden stood tall amid the wreckage, a beacon of hope in the midst of despair. The battle for Viridian had begun, and she would lead her people to victory no matter the cost. The sun rose over Viridian, casting its golden rays across the rugged landscape. Captain Mara Arden stood atop a hill overlooking the bustling settlement below. Her keen eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of trouble. But today, there was something different in the air, a tension that hung heavy like a storm cloud on the verge of bursting. As Mara made her way down into the heart of the settlement, she could feel the unease rippling through the streets. People hurried past, their faces drawn and anxious. Whispers of fear and uncertainty floated on the breeze, mingling with the scent of freshly brewed coffee from the nearby cafe. Reaching the command center, Mara found her crew already assembled, their expressions grim and determined. Lieutenant Jackson, her second-in-command, greeted her with a terse nod. "Captain," he said, his voice low and serious, "we've received reports of increased alien activity along the outer perimeter. It looks like the Vexari are gearing up for something big." Mara's jaw tightened at the mention of their long-standing adversaries, the Vexari Dominion. She knew all too well the ruthless nature of the alien faction and the threat they posed to Viridian's fragile peace. "Get me a status report," Mara ordered, her voice firm and commanding. "I want to know our defenses are ready, and our people are prepared for whatever comes our way." As her crew sprang into action, Mara couldn't shake the feeling of dread that gnawed at her gut. She had fought in enough battles to recognize the signs of impending danger, and they were all too clear on this day. Hours passed in tense anticipation as the settlers waited for the inevitable. The sun reached its zenith in the sky, casting long shadows over the dusty streets below. And then, without warning, the alarms began to blare, shattering the uneasy calm. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she raced to the command center, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. The reports flooded in. A massive alien fleet had been spotted on the outskirts of Viridian's airspace, their intentions clear. "They're here," Mara said, her voice steady despite the rising panic around her. "Prepare for battle." With a sense of grim determination, Mara and her crew sprang into action, ready to defend their home against the coming storm. For on Viridian, in the face of adversity, there was only one choice: to stand together and fight. The crimson hue of Viridian's sky painted a scene of chaos as the Vexari forces descended upon the unsuspecting settlers. Captain Mara Arden stood tall amidst the turmoil, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. She scanned the horizon, her eyes squinting against the blinding flashes of energy weapons and billowing smoke. The crackling of gunfire echoed in the air as the defenders engaged the enemy in a desperate struggle for survival. Mara's hands gripped the controls of her fighter ship with white-knuckled intensity, her every instinct honed towards protecting her home and her people. "Stay focused, everyone!" Mara's voice cut through the cacophony, rallying her crew to stand firm against the onslaught. Beside her, Lieutenant Jackson barked out orders, his eyes darting between the control panels as he coordinated their defensive maneuvers. The enemy's advance was relentless, their alien warships looming ominously in the sky like vultures circling their prey. Mara gritted her teeth, her mind racing as she calculated their next move. She knew they couldn't hold out forever against the overwhelming might of the Vexari Dominion, but she refused to give in without a fight. A sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath them, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Mara's heart skipped a beat as she watched helplessly as one of their defensive emplacements was engulfed in flames. The loss was a bitter reminder of the stakes they faced, and the sacrifices that would be demanded of them in the days to come. But Mara was not one to shrink from adversity. With a steely resolve, she guided her ship into the thick of the battle, weaving through a hail of enemy fire with precision and skill. Her every maneuver was a testament to her courage and determination, inspiring those around her to stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. As the battle raged on, Mara felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins, fueling her determination to protect her home at all costs. She glanced over her shoulder at the faces of her crew, each one a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Together, they would weather this storm, no matter what sacrifices it demanded of them. With a fierce battle cry, Mara led the charge against the enemy forces, her ship blazing a trail of defiance across the sky. For in that moment, she knew that the echoes of their valor would resound through the annals of history, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity in the face of adversity. As the smoke from the recent skirmish still hangs heavy in the air, Captain Mara Arden stands amidst the chaos of the makeshift command center. Her gaze sweeps over the faces of her crew, each one bearing the weight of the battle etched into their weary expressions. "Status report," Mara commands, her voice firm but tinged with concern. Lieutenant Jackson, her second-in-command, steps forward, his features set in a determined grimace. "Casualties are mounting, Captain," he replies, his voice betraying the strain of the ongoing conflict. "But morale remains high. We're holding the line." Mara nods, a flicker of pride swelling within her chest. Despite the odds stacked against them, her crew stands resolute, their unwavering loyalty to each other and their cause shining through the darkness of war. She turns to face Private Ramirez, a young recruit barely out of training, his hands trembling slightly as he clutches his rifle. "You're doing well, Ramirez," Mara says, offering him a reassuring smile. "Keep your head down and stay focused. We'll get through this together." Ramirez nods, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. He may be green, but Mara knows he has the heart of a warrior, eager to prove himself in the crucible of battle. As the hours stretch on, Mara moves among her crew, offering words of encouragement and support where needed. She listens to their stories, their hopes and fears laid bare in the aftermath of each skirmish. Some speak of loved ones left behind on distant worlds, others of dreams of peace and prosperity once the fighting is over. But amidst the tales of loss and longing, Mara senses something else stirring among her crew, a bond forged in the crucible of war, binding them together as brothers and sisters in arms. Despite their differences in background and upbringing, they are united by a common purpose, a shared determination to defend their home and each other at all costs. As the battle rages on, Mara knows that it is this bond, this sense of camaraderie and solidarity, that will see them through the darkest of times. And as long as they stand together, she is confident that they will emerge victorious, their valor echoing through the annals of history for generations to come. The air on Viridian crackled with tension as Captain Mara Arden paced the dimly lit command center. The glow of holographic displays cast eerie shadows across the faces of her crew, highlighting the exhaustion etched into every line. Outside, the distant rumble of artillery fire echoed through the night, a grim reminder of the battle raging just beyond their walls. Mara's brow furrowed as she studied the tactical map projected before her. Red blips representing enemy forces blinked ominously, encroaching ever closer to their defensive perimeter. Every inch lost meant more lives at risk, and Mara felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders like a leaden cloak. "Status report," Mara commanded, her voice cutting through the oppressive silence. Lieutenant Jackson, her second-in-command, stepped forward, his face drawn with fatigue, but his eyes burning with determination. "Enemy forces have breached the eastern sector, Captain. Casualties are mounting, and our defenses are holding, but barely." Mara clenched her jaw, her fists tightening at her sides. They had known this battle would be difficult, but the reality of it was far worse than she had imagined. The Vexari were relentless, their forces seemingly endless, and Viridian was teetering on the brink of collapse. "We need to shore up our defenses," Mara said, her voice firm with resolve. "Get reinforcements to the eastern sector and fortify those positions. We can't afford to lose any ground." As her crew scrambled to carry out her orders, Mara's thoughts turned inward, grappling with the weight of their situation. They were outnumbered and outgunned, facing an enemy that showed no mercy. And now, in the midst of battle, a shadow of doubt crept into Mara's mind. Could there be a traitor among them, someone who had betrayed their cause for their own gain? The thought turned Mara's stomach, but she knew she couldn't ignore the possibility, not when so much was at stake. She glanced around the command center, studying the faces of her crew with a newfound wariness. Each one had fought bravely, risking their lives for the people of Viridian. But behind their masks of determination, Mara couldn't help but wonder if someone harbored darker intentions. Her gaze settled on Lieutenant Jackson, his expression unreadable as he busied himself with the communications console. Could he be the traitor? Mara pushed the thought aside, unwilling to entertain accusations without evidence. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and Mara knew she couldn't ignore it. As the battle raged on outside, Mara vowed to stay vigilant, to trust her instincts and protect her people at all costs. For on Viridian, in the heart of war, the line between friend and foe had never been more blurred, and Mara knew that the enemy within could be just as dangerous as the enemy without. As the crimson sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape of Viridian, Captain Mara Arden stood atop a rocky outcrop overlooking the makeshift command center. The air crackled with tension as she surveyed the holographic map spread out before her, detailing the movements of the Vexari Dominion forces. Mara's brow furrowed in concentration as she analyzed the enemy's tactics. Commander Zalok was proving to be a formidable adversary, his maneuvers calculated and precise. But Mara was determined not to let him outmaneuver her. "Any updates from our scouts?" Mara asked, turning to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ramirez, who stood at her side. Lieutenant Ramirez shook his head grimly. "Nothing yet, Captain. The enemy has been keeping a low profile, making it difficult to track their movements." Mara clenched her jaw in frustration. Without reliable intel, their chances of countering the Vexari's next move were slim, but she refused to let despair cloud her judgment. "We need to think outside the box," Mara said, her voice firm with determination. "If we can't find the enemy, then we'll force them to come to us." With a wave of her hand, Mara summoned her senior officers to join her at the command center. Together, they brainstormed strategies, debating the merits of each approach. "We could lure them into a trap," suggested Commander Johnson, a grizzled veteran with a scar running across his cheek. "Set up decoy convoys and ambush them when they least expect it." Mara nodded thoughtfully, considering the proposal. It was risky, but it just might work. She turned to her tactical advisor, Lieutenant Chen, for his input. "What do you think, Lieutenant?" Mara asked, fixing him with a steady gaze. Lieutenant Chen tapped a few commands into the console, projecting a simulation of the proposed ambush onto the holographic display. "It's a bold plan, Captain, but it could pay off if executed correctly. We'll need to coordinate closely with our ground forces to ensure maximum effectiveness." Mara nodded in agreement. Time was of the essence, and they couldn't afford to hesitate. With a sense of resolve, she gave the order to set the plan in motion. As the night wore on, Mara and her crew worked tirelessly, coordinating the logistics of the ambush and making the necessary preparations. The tension in the air was palpable, each member of the defense force acutely aware of the stakes. Finally, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of orange and gold, Mara stood at the helm of her flagship, the Valiant Asterisk, leading the convoy into position. Her heart pounded with anticipation as they lay in wait, ready to spring their trap on the unsuspecting enemy. Minutes stretched into hours, each passing moment filled with anticipation and apprehension. Then suddenly the telltale blips of enemy signatures appeared on the radar. "This is it," Mara murmured, her hands steady on the controls. "Hold steady, everyone, and may the stars be with us." With bated breath, Mara and her crew waited for the perfect moment to strike, their hearts pounding in unison as they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. The cold silence of space enveloped the sleek spacecraft as it stealthily glided through the void. Captain Mara Arden stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the distant shimmer of Viridian below. Her heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension as she prepared to lead her crew on a perilous mission behind enemy lines. The ship's interior buzzed with subdued activity as the crew made final preparations. Mara's trusted Lieutenant Commander Jackson manned the navigation console with steady hands, plotting their course through hostile territory. Beside him, Engineer Chen tinkered with the ship's systems, ensuring everything was in optimal condition for the daring mission ahead. Mara's gaze swept over her crew, taking in their determined expressions and resolute demeanor. They were a ragtag bunch, brought together by the bonds of camaraderie and shared purpose. Each member had their own reasons for fighting, but they all shared one goal: to protect Viridian at any cost. As the ship drew closer to the enemy's territory, Mara's mind raced with plans and contingencies. She knew the risks they faced were immense, but she also knew that they had no choice but to press on. The fate of Viridian hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. Finally, they reached their destination, a sprawling complex nestled deep within the heart of enemy territory. Mara's jaw clenched as she surveyed the imposing structure, bristling with defenses, and guarded by a formidable array of ships. She knew that infiltrating the compound would be no easy feat, but she was determined to succeed. With a silent nod to her crew, Mara gave the order to commence the operation. The ship's engines hummed to life as they descended towards the compound, slipping past the enemy's sensors with practiced precision. Mara's pulse quickened as they approached their target, her senses on high alert for any sign of danger. As they touched down on the landing pad, Mara felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. This was it. The moment they had been training for. The moment that would determine the outcome of the war. With grim determination, Mara led her crew out of the ship and into the heart of enemy territory. The compound was a hive of activity, teeming with alien soldiers and bustling with machinery. Mara and her crew moved with purpose, blending into the shadows as they made their way towards their objective. They encountered obstacles at every turn, from security checkpoints to patrolling guards, but they navigated them with skill and precision. Finally, they reached their target, a heavily guarded supply depot nestled deep within the bowels of the compound. Mara's heart raced as she surveyed the defenses, calculating their next move. With a silent signal, she motioned for her crew to spring into action. The ensuing battle was fierce and chaotic, with Mara and her crew fighting tooth and nail to overcome the enemy's defenses. Blaster fire echoed through the corridors as they pushed forward, inch by inch, towards their goal. Despite the odds stacked against them, they refused to back down, driven by a fierce determination to succeed. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached the heart of the supply depot. Mara's hands shook with adrenaline as she set the charges, knowing that their success hinged on this final act. With a steady hand, she pressed the detonator, triggering a series of explosions that ripped through the compound. As the smoke cleared and the dust settled, Mara and her crew stood victorious amidst the wreckage. The supply depot lay in ruins, its defenses shattered and its resources decimated. But more importantly, they had struck a significant blow against the enemy, weakening their foothold on Viridian and bolstering the defenders' resolve. With a sense of grim satisfaction, Mara led her crew back to the safety of their ship, knowing that their mission was far from over. The battle for Viridian still raged on, but with each victory, they grew one step closer to reclaiming their home and securing a future for their people. And as they soared through the stars towards their next objective, Mara couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness of war. The moonless night draped its cloak of darkness over Viridian, shrouding the landscape in an eerie silence broken only by the distant rumble of artillery fire. Captain Mara Arden stood on the command deck of her ship, the Valiant Asterisk, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the positions of both friend and foe. The Vexari forces had launched a ferocious counterattack, pushing the human defenders to the brink of collapse. Mara clenched her jaw, her hands gripping the railing tightly as she watched the chaos unfold below. The enemy's relentless assault had caught them off guard, overwhelming their defenses and scattering their forces. Desperation hung heavy in the air as the defenders fought tooth and nail to hold their ground. "We can't hold out much longer," Mara muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the din of battle. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Ramirez, approached, his brow furrowed with concern. "Captain, we need to do something. We can't just sit here and let them overrun us." Mara nodded grimly, her mind racing as she considered their options. The situation was dire, but she refused to give up without a fight. With a determined set to her jaw, she turned to her crew. "Listen up, everyone," she called out, her voice ringing clear above the chaos. "We're not going down without a fight. We need to hit the Vexari where it hurts and buy our ground forces some breathing room." Her crew nodded in agreement, their faces set with grim determination. They knew the risks, but they were prepared to do whatever it took to turn the tide of battle. Mara quickly formulated a plan, her mind working at breakneck speed as she calculated the risks and potential outcomes. She knew it was risky, but they had no other choice. They had to strike now, while they still had a chance. "Prepare for a full-scale assault," Mara ordered, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "We're going in." The Valiant surged forward, its engines roaring to life as it hurtled towards the heart of the enemy's fleet. The crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and coordinated as they prepared for the onslaught ahead. As they closed in on their target, Mara felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. This was it, their moment of reckoning. They would either emerge victorious or go down fighting, but they would not go quietly into the night. "Brace yourselves," Mara warned, her hands tightening around the controls. "This is going to be a rough ride." With a thunderous roar, the Valiant Asterisk plunged into the heart of the enemy formation, unleashing a barrage of firepower that tore through the alien ships like a hot knife through butter. The sky erupted in a dazzling display of light and sound as explosions blossomed on all sides. Mara gritted her teeth, her eyes narrowed in fierce determination as she guided her ship through the chaos. She dodged enemy fire with expert precision, weaving through the onslaught like a dancer on the battlefield. For what felt like an eternity, the Valiant Asterisk fought tooth and nail against the Vexari forces, trading blow for blow in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The odds were against them, but Mara refused to back down, her resolve unyielding in the face of overwhelming adversity. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the tide began to turn. With a final push, Mara and her crew managed to break through the enemy lines, sending the remaining Vexari ships scattering in disarray. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, Mara allowed herself a moment of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had emerged victorious. But even as she celebrated their hard-won victory, Mara knew that the battle was far from over. The Vexari would regroup and return with a vengeance, and Viridian would once again find itself in the crosshairs of war. But for now, in this fleeting moment of triumph, Mara allowed herself to savor the taste of victory. It was a small reprieve in the midst of chaos, but it was enough to fuel the flames of hope that burned bright within her heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Captain Mara Arden stood at the helm of her ship, the Valiant Sparrow *. The air crackled with tension as the defenders of Viridian prepared for the final showdown against the relentless forces of the Vexari Dominion. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she surveyed the enemy fleet massing on the horizon. Their ships glinted ominously in the fading light, a stark reminder of the imminent danger that loomed over them. But Mara refused to let fear cloud her resolve. She squared her shoulders, steeling herself for the battle ahead. "Steady, everyone!" Mara's voice cut through the din of the cockpit, commanding attention. "We've faced tougher odds before, and we'll face them again. Today we fight for Viridian, for our homes and for each other. We will not falter, we will not retreat. We will stand together as one." A chorus of affirmations echoed through the ship as Mara's crew rallied behind her. They knew the risks, they understood the stakes, but they were ready to lay down their lives if it meant protecting what they held dear. With a final nod to her crew, Mara gripped the controls of the Valiant Sparrow * and guided the ship into position at the forefront of the defense line. The hum of the engines thrummed beneath her fingertips, a reassuring presence amidst the chaos of war. As the first shots rang out across the battlefield, Mara's senses sharpened, her focus narrowing on the task at hand. She guided the Valiant Sparrow * with precision, weaving through the enemy ranks with the skill of a seasoned pilot. Laser fire streaked past them, missing by mere inches as Mara deftly maneuvered the ship out of harm's way. But amidst the chaos, Mara caught sight of a familiar silhouette in the distance, the flagship of the Vexari fleet, commanded by none other than Commander Zalok himself. A surge of adrenaline coursed through Mara's veins as she locked eyes with her adversary, each knowing that their fate would be decided in the coming moments. With a silent vow, Mara pushed the Valiant Sparrow * to its limits, hurtling towards the enemy flagship with reckless abandon. The air crackled with energy as the two ships closed in on each other, the tension reaching a fever pitch. And then, in a blinding flash of light, the two vessels collided, sending shockwaves rippling through space. The impact reverberated through Mara's bones, jolting her back to reality as alarms blared around her. But even as the Valiant Sparrow * trembled under the force of the collision, Mara refused to waver. With gritted teeth and steely determination, Mara fought tooth and nail against the Vexari forces, refusing to back down even as the odds stacked against her. Every maneuver, every shot fired was a testament to her unwavering resolve, her unyielding commitment to the cause. And then, in a decisive moment of triumph, Mara's perseverance paid off. With a final resounding blow, she crippled the enemy flagship, sending it spiraling into oblivion. The cheers of her crew echoed through the cockpit, a chorus of victory amidst the chaos of battle. As the dust settled and the last remnants of the Vexari fleet retreated into the darkness, Mara allowed herself a moment of relief. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Yet as she surveyed the scarred landscape of Viridian, Mara knew that as long as she and her crew stood together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, their courage echoing through the annals of history. As dawn breaks over the war-torn landscape of Viridian, the air is thick with tension. Captain Mara Arden stands at the forefront of her ragtag band of defenders, her gaze unwavering as she surveys the horizon. The distant rumble of approaching enemy forces sends a shiver down her spine, but she refuses to falter. With a silent nod to her comrades, Mara raises her hand, signaling the start of the battle. In an instant, the calm morning air erupts into chaos as the defenders spring into action, weapons drawn and determination etched upon their faces. The first wave of Vexari troops crashes against their defenses like a relentless tide, but Mara and her allies stand firm, refusing to yield an inch of ground. The air is filled with the deafening roar of gunfire and the acrid scent of smoke as the two sides clash in a desperate struggle for supremacy. Mara fights with a fierce intensity, her heart pounding in her chest as she dances through the chaos, her blade flashing in the sunlight. Beside her, her comrades fight with equal fervor, their shouts of defiance echoing across the battlefield. But despite their best efforts, the Vexari forces seem endless, their numbers overwhelming the defenders at every turn. Mara grits her teeth in frustration, her mind racing as she searches for a way to turn the tide of the battle. Suddenly, a cry rings out from the rear of the defense line, and Mara's blood runs cold as she realizes the gravity of the situation. The enemy has broken through their defenses, threatening to overrun their position and turn the tide of the battle in their favor. With a fierce determination burning in her eyes, Mara charges into the fray, rallying her comrades to her side as she leads the counterattack. With every swing of her blade and every shot fired from her gun, she pushes back against the encroaching enemy forces, refusing to let them gain an inch of ground. As the battle rages on, Mara's heart pounds in her chest, her muscles burning with exertion as she fights with every ounce of strength she possesses. Sweat pours down her brow, mingling with the dirt and grime that coats her skin, but still she fights on, driven by a fierce determination to protect her home and her people. And then, finally, after what feels like an eternity, the tide of the battle begins to turn. With a final desperate push, Mara and her comrades drive the Vexari forces back, sending them fleeing into the distance with their tails between their legs. As the dust settles and the echoes of battle fade into silence, Mara stands amidst the wreckage of the battlefield, her chest heaving with exertion, but a triumphant smile upon her lips. Though the cost of victory has been high, she knows that her courage and determination have carried the day, and that the people of Viridian can rest easy, knowing that their home is safe once more. The air hung heavy with the scent of ash and sorrow as dawn broke over the war-torn landscape of Viridian. Captain Mara Arden stood amidst the rubble, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the first rays of sunlight struggled to pierce through the thick clouds of smoke. Her heart weighed heavy in her chest, burdened by the weight of loss and regret. Around her, the survivors of the battle moved with somber determination, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief. They worked tirelessly to clear debris and tend to the wounded, their hands stained with blood and dirt. Mara watched them with a mixture of admiration and anguish, knowing that their resilience was both a testament to their strength and a reminder of the horrors they had endured. As the morning wore on, Mara found herself drawn to the makeshift memorial that had been erected in the center of the settlement. Row upon row of names were etched into the cold stone, a solemn tribute to those who had made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of their home. Tears welled in Mara's eyes as she traced the familiar names of friends and comrades, each loss a painful reminder of the price of victory. Among the fallen was Lieutenant Ramirez, a young recruit who had shown courage beyond his years in the heat of battle. Mara remembered the look of determination in his eyes as he fought by her side, his unwavering loyalty a source of strength in the darkest of moments. Now his name joined the countless others, a silent testament to his bravery and sacrifice. As Mara stood before the memorial, lost in memories of battles won and lost, she felt a hand rest gently on her shoulder. She turned to find Sergeant Jackson, his weathered face lined with sorrow, but his eyes filled with a quiet resolve. In that moment, Mara realized that she was not alone in her grief, that they were all bound together by a common purpose and a shared sense of duty. Together, they stood in silent vigil, honoring the fallen and drawing strength from each other's presence. In the midst of loss, they found solace in the knowledge that their sacrifice had not been in vain, that their courage would live on in the hearts of those they had left behind. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its warm embrace over the battered landscape of Viridian, Mara felt a glimmer of hope stir within her soul. Though the scars of war would never fully heal, she knew that they would endure, their resilience a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. And as she looked out over the horizon, where the first signs of new life began to emerge from the charred earth, Mara knew that they would rebuild, stronger and more determined than ever before. For in the echoes of valor, they would find the strength to rise again, to face whatever challenges the future may hold, together. The air on Viridian was heavy with the weight of loss, each breath a struggle against the sorrow that hung over the settlement like a shroud. In the aftermath of the brutal battle, the once vibrant streets lay in ruins, the echoes of destruction a grim reminder of the cost of war. Captain Mara Arden stood amidst the wreckage, her heart heavy with grief as she surveyed the devastation that surrounded her. Buildings lay in tatters, their charred remains a stark contrast to the once bustling marketplace. Smoke still rose from smoldering rubble, twisting and curling like specters of the fallen. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders, the burden of command heavier than ever before. Each life lost under her command was a weight she would carry with her for the rest of her days, a constant reminder of the cost of victory. Mara walked through the ruins, her boots crunching on broken glass and twisted metal. Faces flashed before her eyes, the memories of those who had fought and died alongside her haunting her every step. She could still hear their voices, their laughter mingling with the screams of the wounded and the dying. She stopped beside a collapsed building, the remnants of a makeshift hospital where the wounded had been brought for treatment. The stench of blood and antiseptic hung in the air, mixing with the acrid smell of smoke and ash. Mara's throat tightened as she remembered the desperate pleas for help, the cries of pain that had echoed through the night. She knelt beside a pile of rubble, her fingers brushing against a twisted piece of metal. It was all that remained of a stretcher, a stark reminder of the lives that had been lost within these walls. Tears welled in Mara's eyes as she thought of the doctors and nurses who had worked tirelessly to save the wounded, their efforts in vain against the relentless tide of war. But amidst the devastation, there was also hope. The people of Viridian had come together in the face of adversity, their resilience shining through even in the darkest of times. They worked side by side, clearing debris and tending to the wounded, their determination unwavering despite the hardships they faced. Mara drew strength from their courage, knowing that their sacrifices had not been in vain. She rose to her feet, a newfound resolve burning in her eyes. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she would not falter. She would honor the memory of those who had fallen, fighting for a future where peace and prosperity could flourish once more. As the sun began to set on the horizon, casting long shadows across the ruined landscape, Mara looked to the sky with renewed determination. The echoes of valor rang out in her heart, a beacon of hope in the darkness. And though the scars of war would never fully heal, she knew that as long as there were those willing to fight for what was right, the light of justice would never be extinguished. The sun rose timidly over the horizon, casting its gentle light upon the battered landscape of Viridian. Among the ruins of once thriving settlements, the survivors emerged like ghosts from the shadows, their faces etched with weariness and sorrow. Captain Mara Arden stood at the heart of it all, a solitary figure amidst the chaos, her eyes scanning the devastation with a heavy heart. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and ash, a lingering reminder of the fierce battles that had raged across the planet. Buildings lay in ruins, their shattered remains serving as grim monuments to the lives lost in the struggle for survival. Yet amid the destruction, there were signs of hope, small, fragile buds of life pushing their way through the cracked earth, a testament to the resilience of nature and the indomitable spirit of the human heart. Mara took a deep breath, steeling herself for the daunting task ahead. With a sense of purpose that belied her exhaustion, she set to work organizing the survivors and coordinating the efforts to rebuild their shattered world. Together they cleared away the debris, salvaging what they could and laying the groundwork for a new beginning. The days blurred together in a blur of sweat and toil, each one bringing fresh challenges and unexpected obstacles. Yet through it all, Mara remained steadfast, her determination unwavering in the face of adversity. She worked alongside her fellow settlers, their hands blistered and calloused from hours of labor, their spirits buoyed by the promise of a brighter future. As the weeks passed, the scars of war began to fade, replaced by the steady rhythm of progress. Homes were rebuilt, streets were repaved, and fields were sown with the promise of a bountiful harvest. Yet beneath the surface, wounds still lingered, invisible scars that would take far longer to heal than any physical injury. In the quiet moments between tasks, Mara found herself haunted by memories of the friends she had lost, their faces lingering in her mind like fading echoes of the past. She mourned their passing, their absence a constant ache in her heart, and yet she knew that their sacrifices had not been in vain, that their legacy would live on in the hearts of those they had left behind. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Mara stood at the edge of the rebuilt settlement, gazing out across the landscape with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The scars of war still marred the earth, but amid the ruins, there were signs of new life, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. And as the stars twinkled overhead, casting their gentle light upon the world below, Mara knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, the people of Viridian would face them together, united in their determination to forge a future worthy of those who had given their lives in its defense. For in the end, it was not the battles won or the enemies vanquished that truly mattered, but the bonds of friendship and camaraderie that endured in the face of adversity, the echoes of valor that would resound through the ages, long after the last shots had been fired and the dust had settled. As the sun rose over the scarred landscape of Viridian, Captain Mara Arden stood atop a ridge, surveying the horizon with a furrowed brow. The air was heavy with the scent of ash and smoke, remnants of the recent battle that had ravaged the planet. But there was no time for rest or reflection, for Mara knew that danger lurked just beyond the horizon. Gathering her trusted advisors, Mara convened a meeting in the makeshift command center, a cluster of tents and prefabricated shelters nestled amidst the ruins of a once thriving settlement. The atmosphere was tense as Mara outlined her plan to seek out allies among neighboring planets, forging alliances to strengthen Viridian's defenses against the looming threat. "We cannot face this new enemy alone," Mara declared, her voice firm with resolve. "We must reach out to our neighbors, to those who share our struggle against tyranny and oppression. Together, we will stand against the darkness that threatens to engulf us." Her words resonated with the gathered crowd, a motley assembly of soldiers, settlers, and survivors, each bearing the scars of war and the weight of their shared destiny. Among them stood Lieutenant Jackson, Mara's second-in-command, his face etched with determination as he pledged his support to her cause. "We will not falter, Captain," Jackson vowed, his voice ringing out with conviction. "We will fight alongside you to the very end, whatever the cost may be." With their resolve strengthened, Mara and her advisors set out on a diplomatic mission, traversing the treacherous terrain of Viridian in search of potential allies. Their journey was fraught with danger, as they navigated through rugged mountain passes and dense forests, evading enemy patrols and hostile wildlife at every turn. But despite the challenges they faced, Mara remained undaunted, her spirit unbroken by the trials of their journey. For she knew that the fate of Viridian hung in the balance, and that only by forging alliances with their neighbors could they hope to withstand the coming storm. After days of arduous travel, Mara and her companions arrived at the neighboring planet of Avalon, a verdant world teeming with life and beauty. There, they were greeted by Lord Harrington, the ruler of Avalon, a wise and noble leader who shared Mara's vision of unity and strength in the face of adversity. "I have heard of your plight, Captain Arden," Lord Harrington said, his voice tinged with sympathy. "And I stand ready to offer whatever aid I can to help you defend Viridian against this new threat." Grateful for his support, Mara and her companions set about negotiating an alliance with Lord Harrington and the people of Avalon, laying the groundwork for a united front against their common enemy. And as they worked tirelessly to strengthen their defenses and prepare for the challenges that lay ahead, Mara felt a glimmer of hope stirring within her heart, knowing that they were not alone in their struggle, but united in their determination to face whatever the future held. Together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the bustling settlement of Viridian. Captain Mara Arden stood atop a makeshift platform, her gaze sweeping across the gathered crowd of settlers. They had come together in the town square, their faces etched with determination and hope, as Mara prepared to address them. "We stand at a crossroads," Mara began, her voice ringing out with conviction. "Our home has been threatened, but we refuse to yield. We will fight for Viridian, for each other, and for our future." The crowd erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by Mara's words. She could see the fire of determination burning in their eyes, a shared resolve to defend their planet against any who would dare to challenge them. But Mara knew that victory could not be achieved through strength alone. They needed allies. Allies who would stand by their side in the darkest of times. And so, she set out to seek them, to forge alliances that would bolster Viridian's defenses and ensure its survival. Her first stop was the neighboring planet of Avalon, a verdant world known for its rich resources and skilled warriors. Mara's ship soared through the star-strewn expanse of space, carrying her ever closer to her destination. As Avalon came into view, Mara marveled at its beauty. Lush forests stretched as far as the eye could see, interspersed with shimmering lakes and majestic mountains. But beneath its tranquil exterior, Mara knew that Avalon harbored a fierce spirit, one that would not hesitate to defend itself against any who threatened it. Mara's ship touched down on Avalon's surface, and she was greeted by a delegation of Avalonian leaders. They welcomed her with open arms, eager to hear her proposal for an alliance. Mara spoke of Viridian's plight, of the relentless attacks by the Vexari Dominion, and of the need for solidarity among neighboring planets. She appealed to their sense of duty, to their shared desire for freedom and autonomy. The Avalonians listened intently, their expressions thoughtful as they weighed Mara's words. And then, after a moment of silence, their leader stepped forward, a solemn look on his face. "We will stand with you, Captain Arden," he declared, his voice ringing out with conviction. "Viridian's fight is our fight, and together we will prevail." Mara felt a surge of relief and gratitude wash over her. With Avalon at their side, Viridian's chances of victory had grown exponentially. But she knew that their work was far from over. As Mara bid farewell to her new allies and set course for the next planet on her list, she couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with danger and uncertainty. But with each alliance forged, with each friend gained, Viridian's strength grew stronger, its spirit unyielding in the face of adversity. And so, Captain Mara Arden pressed onward, her resolve unwavering, her determination unshakable. For she knew that as long as they stood together, united in purpose and in spirit, there was nothing they could not overcome. The once tranquil skies of Viridian darkened with clouds of impending doom as the Vexari forces launched their renewed assault. The settlers' worst fears had become a stark reality as enemy ships descended upon the planet like vultures descending upon their prey. Captain Mara Arden stood on the command deck of her flagship, the Valor's Resolve *, her jaw clenched with determination as she surveyed the chaos unfolding before her. The air crackled with tension as alarms blared and crew members scrambled to their stations, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and resolve. "Status report!" Mara's voice cut through the chaos, commanding attention amidst the cacophony of battle. Her eyes narrowed as she awaited the response, her fingers tapping impatiently against the armrest of her chair. Lieutenant Carter, her trusted second-in-command, stepped forward, his expression grim. "Enemy forces have breached our perimeter defenses," he reported, his voice tinged with urgency. "We're outnumbered and outgunned, Captain. We need to act fast." Mara nodded grimly, her mind racing as she formulated a plan of action. She knew that time was of the essence, that every moment wasted meant more lives lost, and the risk of losing Viridian forever. "Deploy the reserves," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging around them. "Send out reconnaissance teams to gather intel on enemy movements, and prepare the evacuation protocols. We'll need to evacuate the civilians to safety." As her crew sprang into action, Mara felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She knew that the odds were stacked against them, that victory was far from assured. But she also knew that she couldn't afford to falter. Not now. Not when the fate of Viridian hung in the balance. Outside the protective walls of the command deck, the battle raged on with ferocious intensity. Explosions lit up the sky as ships clashed in a deadly dance of destruction, their weapons raining down death and devastation upon the planet below. Mara clenched her fists, her gaze fixed on the viewport as she watched the chaos unfold. She could feel the weight of responsibility bearing down on her shoulders, the lives of her crew and the fate of Viridian resting in her hands. But amidst the chaos and the carnage, Mara refused to yield to despair. She knew that as long as there was breath in her body, as long as there was hope in her heart, she would fight to the very end. For she was Captain Mara Arden, and she would not let her people fall without a fight. The air crackled with tension as Captain Mara Arden paced the command center, her mind racing with strategies to repel the impending Vexari assault. Her crew moved with purpose, preparing weapons and reinforcing defenses, their faces etched with determination. But amidst the chaos of war, a shadow lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike. Mara's trusted advisor, Lieutenant Ramirez, stood by her side, his expression unreadable. She had always trusted Ramirez, relied on his counsel in times of need. Yet a nagging sense of unease gnawed at her gut. As the minutes stretched into hours, Mara noticed subtle signs, a glance exchanged, a whispered conversation, that raised suspicions in her mind. Was it merely the stress of battle playing tricks on her, or was there something more sinister at play? Suddenly alarms blared throughout the command center, signaling the approach of the Vexari fleet. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she surveyed the tactical displays, her mind racing to formulate a plan of action. But before she could give the order to engage, Ramirez stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Captain," he said, his tone eerily calm, "I'm afraid there's something you need to know." Mara's blood ran cold as Ramirez revealed his true allegiance, his words dripping with betrayal. He had been working with the Vexari all along, feeding them information about Viridian's defenses, laying the groundwork for their invasion. Shock and disbelief washed over Mara as she struggled to comprehend the magnitude of Ramirez's betrayal. How could someone she had trusted implicitly turn against her and her people? Anger flared within her, burning hot and fierce, but she forced herself to remain composed, to focus on the task at hand. With a heavy heart, Mara gave the order to detain Ramirez, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging within her. There would be time for reckoning later, but for now, they had a battle to win. As the Vexari ships loomed ever closer, Mara steeled herself for the fight ahead. She would not let Ramirez's treachery undo everything they had fought for, everything they had sacrificed to protect. With renewed resolve, she rallied her forces, leading them into battle with a fierce determination that would not be quenched. And as the first shots were fired and the clash of metal and energy echoed through the void, Mara knew that victory was within their grasp. No matter the odds, no matter the challenges they faced, she would lead her people to triumph, their courage shining brightly amidst the darkness of betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the scarred landscape of Viridian, Captain Mara Arden stood at the forefront of her makeshift command post, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the approaching storm of battle loomed. The air was heavy with anticipation, each breath tinged with the acrid scent of smoke and the metallic tang of fear. Around her, the defenders of Viridian prepared for the final onslaught, their faces etched with determination and resolve. They knew what was coming, knew the odds were stacked against them, yet they stood tall, ready to fight to the last breath in defense of their home. Mara tightened her grip on the hilt of her blade, feeling the familiar weight of steel in her hand. It was a weapon forged in the fires of countless battles, a symbol of her steadfast determination and unwavering resolve. She knew that the fate of Viridian rested on her shoulders, that the decisions she made in the coming hours would shape the course of history. The first tremors of the enemy's advance rippled through the earth, a distant thunder heralding the storm to come. Mara's heart pounded in her chest as she surveyed the battlefield, calculating the best course of action. She knew that they were outnumbered, outgunned, but she refused to let despair take hold. There was still fight left in them, still hope to be found amidst the chaos. With a silent nod to her comrades, Mara issued the command to prepare for battle. The defenders sprang into action, taking up their positions with grim determination. They knew that this would be their final stand, that they would either emerge victorious or fall beneath the weight of their enemy's fury. As the first wave of enemy forces crested the horizon, Mara raised her blade high, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. With a fierce cry, she charged into the fray, leading her comrades into battle with the courage of a true warrior. The clash of steel rang out across the battlefield, a symphony of violence and desperation. The defenders fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their blows fueled by the fire of defiance that burned within their hearts. Every swing of Mara's blade was a testament to their determination, every strike a blow against the forces of tyranny that sought to crush them. But for every enemy that fell, 2 more rose to take their place. The tide of battle ebbed and flowed like the restless sea, each side locked in a deadly dance of death and destruction. Yet amidst the chaos, Mara remained steadfast, her resolve unbroken despite the overwhelming odds. As the battle raged on, Mara found herself locked in a duel with a fearsome foe, their blades flashing in the dying light of the setting sun. With every clash, she felt the weight of the world bearing down upon her, the burden of leadership heavy upon her shoulders. But she refused to falter, refused to give in to despair. With a final desperate lunge, Mara drove her blade home, piercing the heart of her enemy with a resounding cry of victory. And as the last echoes of battle faded into the night, she stood triumphant amidst the wreckage of war, a beacon of hope amidst the darkness. For though the battle had been won, the war was far from over. But as long as there were those willing to stand and fight, as long as there were those who dared to defy the forces of tyranny and oppression, the echoes of valor would continue to ring out across the galaxy, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. The air on Viridian was thick with the acrid scent of smoke and the heavy weight of exhaustion. The once vibrant landscape lay scarred and battered, a testament to the fierce battle that had raged across its surface. Captain Mara Arden stood amidst the ruins, her gaze sweeping over the devastation with a mixture of sorrow and grim determination. The remnants of her defense force gathered around her, their faces etched with weariness and sorrow. They had fought bravely, but the cost of victory had been steep. Mara felt the weight of their sacrifices pressing down on her shoulders, threatening to crush her spirit beneath their burden. She turned to face her comrades, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging within her. "We have won," she declared, her words ringing out across the battlefield. "But let us not forget the price we have paid. Our friends, our brothers and sisters in arms, they are gone, and we must honor their memory with our actions." The survivors bowed their heads in silent tribute, their hearts heavy with grief for those they had lost. Each name was a dagger in Mara's heart, a reminder of the cost of war. But she knew that their sacrifices had not been in vain. Their courage had secured victory against impossible odds, and their memory would live on in the annals of history. As the sun began to set on the blood-stained horizon, Mara led her weary comrades in a solemn ceremony to honor the fallen. They gathered around a makeshift memorial, each name engraved upon a simple plaque, a testament to their courage and sacrifice. Mara stepped forward, her hand resting upon the cold metal surface of the memorial. "We will never forget you," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "You will always be remembered as heroes, warriors who gave everything for the sake of others. Rest in peace, my friends. Your valor will echo through the ages." Tears welled in Mara's eyes as she stepped back, allowing her comrades to pay their respects in turn. Each one lingered for a moment, their thoughts filled with memories of those they had lost. But amidst the sorrow, there was also a glimmer of hope, a sense of determination to carry on in the face of adversity. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, Mara stood alone amidst the ruins, her heart heavy with grief, but also filled with a fierce determination to rebuild. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she knew that as long as they stood together, they would overcome whatever challenges lay in their path. And so, with the echoes of valor ringing in their ears, Mara and her comrades turned their eyes to the future, ready to face whatever trials awaited them with courage and resilience. For though the scars of war would never truly fade, neither would the indomitable spirit of those who dared to stand against the darkness. As the dust settled on the battlefield of Viridian, Captain Mara Arden stood amidst the ruins, her heart heavy with both sorrow and triumph. The once vibrant landscape was now scarred by the ravages of war, the echoes of battle still ringing in the air. But amidst the destruction, there remained a glimmer of hope, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. With a heavy sigh, Mara surveyed the scene before her. Fallen comrades lay scattered across the ground, their sacrifices forever etched into the annals of history. Each life lost was a poignant reminder of the cost of victory, a price paid in blood and tears. But even in the midst of despair, there was a sense of defiance in the air, a refusal to surrender to despair. The people of Viridian had faced the worst that the universe could throw at them, and yet they stood tall, unbroken by the trials they had endured. As Mara walked among the ruins, she felt a sense of pride swell within her chest. Despite the odds, they had emerged victorious, driving back the forces of darkness and reclaiming their home. It was a victory forged in the fires of adversity, a testament to the courage and resilience of the human spirit. But amidst the celebrations, Mara knew that their work was far from over. The scars of war ran deep, and it would take time for Viridian to heal. But she was determined to see it through, to rebuild what had been lost, and ensure that the sacrifices of her comrades were not in vain. With a determined stride, Mara turned towards the future, her eyes alight with a newfound sense of purpose. Though the echoes of battle would fade with time, the legacy of their valor would endure, a beacon of hope for generations to come. And as she gazed out upon the horizon, Mara knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united in their resolve to protect their home and uphold the values they held dear. For in the end, it was not the battles won or the enemies defeated that defined them, but the courage to stand tall in the face of adversity, to never falter in their pursuit of a better tomorrow. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow upon the battered landscape, Mara whispered a silent vow to herself and to her fallen comrades that their sacrifices would never be forgotten, and that their courage would echo through the ages as a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity.